All right, we are going to get started now. Welcome. We had to do a little bit of a room switch because Coach Tony is actually going on a training as well. So today we're going to be doing a little bit of financial aid 101, just the basics, so that you can understand a little bit more about what financial aid entails. Okay. My name is Coach David. For those of you guys that don't know me, right? If you're watching the recording off in Facebook land or on YouTube, uh, you know, uh, maybe you guys can come live one day. Just let me know, okay? It is January 7th. It is our first training of the new year 2026, right? I always have a big problem kind of like switching over to the new year once I get here. When I'm typing things out, it's like 2025. I've been doing it for the last, year, right? I had a little trouble here too, but January 7th, 2026, our first training of the year, okay? Now, if you guys can help me out by putting your student's grade into the chat or into the Q&A, that would be wonderful. And then I'll answer any questions as we go. Okay. But a little bit about kind of today. Well, Happy New Year, right? It's the first time I've been able to see you guys, right? But today we're going to be talking about financial aid in a nutshell. Unfortunately, as I was going through this, I realized I had way too many, slides, right? So we're going to go over FAFSA today, a little bit about CSS, IDOC, and additional forms. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to get to today, right? But a little bit about me. I'm a former law school and college admissions reader. I'm a former lawyer turned college admissions and financial aid expert, and I'm here to save your family money, okay? Now, one of the things I've instituted starting the last last couple of weeks of last year was question time. I want to make sure that our families are here. They are ready to ask questions because everyone has questions, right? And as you listen to the different things I talk about today, I'm sure more will come up, right? So please make sure to ask. That's why you're here. It's not just to, hear me talk. It is also to make sure that you get your questions answered, and I will try to answer them in line with what we're doing, or I will try to answer them at the end of our call. Now, before we get into our training, a quick message, right? I always tell families, you know what? I can find you the money for college. But unfortunately, the other kind of, our bigger company, right? Our kind of parent company, egelloC, helps students get into the colleges that they want, right? So getting in is the first step, and then the financial aid. So please make sure to reach out to us if you have a student that is in 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th grade, right? The earlier, the better. We have one-time pricing. So please, you can text 949-775-0865, or you can use that QR code to book a call with us to make sure that your student is on the right track, okay? Now, before I jump into like what financial aid is and kind of like what you need to fill out in order to get it, I like to go over some of the more like common myths, right? And if this is how you feel, my family makes a little bit too much money, right? Oh, I've heard my family's not going to be eligible. I own my own home, so I'm not going to get anything. I own a rental property. My neighbor didn't get anything. There are way too many different rumors and myths out there that have basically muddied the waters for families, not making it very clear as to who can get it and not, right? That's where I come in to try to make sure that you guys understand exactly what you can get, okay? And again, at the end, I'll have a link for a consultation with our kind of egelloC financial aid, okay? Now let's jump into financial aid 101. Okay. First off, what is it, right? Financial aid is a term that's thrown out there, but no one really defines it. So I'm going to define it for you, right? Financial aid is any money given to students and families in order to make college more affordable, right? There's a lot of different names for these things. There's grants, there's scholarships, there's work study, institutional aid, departmental aid, loans. But you need to remember, you've probably heard of some of these. Some of these are good, some of these are bad, but every one of these is considered financial aid. Okay. Now, for me, I'd like to keep it simple. Okay. So for me, there's only two buckets of money. Okay. On one side, there is free money. On one side, there are loans, right? Very simply, free money, you never need to pay back. For the loans, you do need to pay something back. Okay. It's very easy to understand. But don't try to differentiate between the types of free money that you get. It's all free money. Who cares, right? But again, remember, there are two types of money, free money and loans. Okay. Now I'm going to go and talk about the first step. The first step is FAFSA. That's the number one thing that needs to get done. Okay. The opening date for the class of 2025 was December 1st. The opening date of the FAFSA for class of 2026 was September 27th. For the class of 2027, I have no idea what is going to happen. But the one thing I will say is that you need to make sure that you are focused on this one website, studentaid.gov. That is the only website that you should be going to. Okay. Now, in order to fill out this kind of FAFSA form, there are two different sides of it. There's the student side and there is the parent side. Okay. But for both the student and the parent, here are the things that you need to be focused on, right? Or the things that you need in order to fill it out. You need the appropriate year tax return. Now, I know I sent a message out to all of our 2027s to be here. For the 2027 students, the correct tax year is going to be 2025. Now, a lot of you families might be thinking, what do you mean 2025? We haven't filed that. Again, think about the timeline. You'll be filing sometime in April, May, June, July, August, September, November. Hopefully you're filing earlier this year, but the tax returns should be done by the time you need to turn in financial aid for your student. Okay. You will need your social security numbers. Okay. The student social security number and the parent social security number. The one thing that I will mention here is please, please, please check your social security number. Your tax return is not a good indicator if that is correct or not. Right? Parents, you might know yours by heart, but your students, you might not know theirs, right? So please check their social security card. You also need an email that you check regularly. This needs to be an email that is unique to the student and unique to one parent, okay? Separate email addresses and phone numbers. They need to be distinct. You need to have one student, one parent, okay? Now, as far as the form, I'm gonna go quickly through this so I can show you what it looks like, okay? But these are the things that they kind of ask. Are you the student? Are you the parent, right? I chose student so I can kind of show this. The state of legal residence. This is important because based on this, you might be able to get things from the state of California, right? That's where I live, right? They'll also be asking you to provide consent to link your information to your kind of IRS data, right? Now, for the student, I don't care. Usually students, even if they did work, don't really have a lot of information on there. That's fine. For parents, that's a different matter. And we'll talk about that sometime in the future, right? For, they also ask about future plans, if you're a freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, whatever it is, and if you will already have your bachelor's degree. They're also going to ask about any of these personal circumstances that might put you in a different category to get more aid, right? If you're a veteran, if you were in foster care, if you're a ward of the court, right? If you were an emancipated minor, all these different things, right? They're also going to ask about student homelessness. Again, I'm just showing these to you so that you guys can see them. I'm not saying that any family has these situations, right? Now, this is one part where I wasn't able to pull the graphics. I pulled it from an older kind of presentation we had, but no longer on the FAFSA form is there a section for non-binary or prefer not to answer, right? On the new FAFSA, there's only two genders available, male and female, okay? So again, for students or families that are having difficulty with this question, right? It is something that has changed recently and something that you do have to kind of answer in order to move on to the next step, okay? Moving on, they ask about kind of your race and ethnicity. They kind of use the FAFSA as also like a way to get census data. So again, this doesn't really matter for financial aid, but they want to kind of ask you, again, they have the prefer not to answer here, right? They ask about your citizenship status, right? They ask if you're a US citizen or national, an eligible non-citizen. Now, an eligible non-citizen has a lot of different meanings, but eligible non-citizen means usually permanent resident. Also, if you have a special type of visa, like a refugee visa, right? Or a different visa, you're also eligible as well. And then there's also neither US citizen nor eligible non-citizen. The problem is that the form has changed. If you do click neither US citizen nor eligible non-citizen, they'll basically say, well, we can't really fill out this form, right? Now, for those families that have students that are kind of undocumented, there is a separate form called the California Dream Act that you can fill out so that you can go to a California state school and receive aid from the California government. Okay. They will also ask about the student's high school completion status, right? Obviously, by the time that your student is going, they'll have either graduated from high school, homeschool, got a GED, whatever it is, right? But most of our students have graduated from high school. They will ask which high school you went to, what city you was in, right? And for most students, they're not filing taxes. Even if they did work, it's not enough to file their own taxes. They just kind of blend it in with their parents, okay? They also ask about the number in college. This is an important question, okay? Now, it's not necessarily important for the California state schools because they actually don't care how many students you have in college, but you have to remember that the FAFSA is a form that is going to every college that you will be applying to, right? So private colleges do care that there's multiple kids in college, okay? And then here, they're going to ask you what colleges you're applying to, right? Now, one of the things that I want to highlight here is actually here in this section, it says 0 out of 20 schools. Now, a lot of our students are applying to more than 20 schools. What does that mean? That means that for a lot of families, you need to actually go into the FAFSA and submit it twice. Once with the 20 schools that you have, and then another time with the other schools that are on your list. So keep that in mind. Okay, so that's a quick rundown of what it looks like on the student side of the FAFSA. Next, the CSS profile. Okay, now I also put if required. Not all colleges require this. The large majority of private schools do ask for the CSS profile, and there are select public schools that ask for this as well. One kind of very notable example for a public school that asks for it is University of Michigan, right? Now, having said that, one of the things I've always stated for our families, especially because a lot of our families are from California, is it doesn't matter what you turn in to the school that, like University of Michigan or University of Texas or University of Wisconsin or University of Tennessee, you're not going to get any aid there. And it's not because you don't deserve it. It's because you are not a resident of that state. You have not paid into that system. So the school and the state see no reason to give you any money. Okay. Now, I'm not saying that you're not going to get any money. I'm just saying that you're not going to get anything based off of these forms. Okay. They like a very kind of like, again, notable example is like Arizona State University. If you're from a different state and you have above a 3.0, they automatically give you $13,500 a year, which is about $54,000 over the course of 4 years. But you have to remember, it's still more expensive to go to ASU than to go to a UC or a CSU, right? Or your own home state school. Okay. Now, the CSS profile, the question is, well, why do we need this? We already filled out the FAFSA. Well, the FAFSA is to see on a federal and state level, are there things we can do for this family? The CSS profile is the next step to see if a particular college can give money to a certain family, right? Out of their own pocket, right? That is why we need to do this form. And it's also a chance for higher income families to get money, right? The cost of a private college nowadays is about $95,000 to $100,000 a year, right? And so even if you're not getting aid from the UCs or CSUs, you might get aid from a private school. So something to keep in mind, right? Now, again, I'm going to go over this form as well and kind of show you guys what it looks like, right? So you need all the same things as above. And a lot of students, they're already going to have the access to their CSS profile because a lot of students have access to College Board. College Board, as you see kind of like off to the right, is the kind of entity that has created the CSS profile, right? So again, they have terms and conditions, no need to read. They're going to ask about your name, okay? Now, the reason I stop here is because kids type very fast, right? And when they type fast, they type wrong. So no nicknames, make sure it's your legal name. If you do have a preferred name, make sure to put it in there. Okay. They also ask about kind of other things like your birthday, social security number in this form as well. Please make sure to verify those things. When you put in your social security number, it just comes up as X's. So make sure that you actually click show to make sure that it is the right thing. Okay. Now here, when it comes to asking about your parents, right? Especially if you are coming from a family that is separated or divorced or widowed or never married but living together, there are different ways to answer the questions that will greatly impact your financial aid. So if that is you, we should probably talk about your situation so we can better understand and create a plan for that. Okay. Now, unlike the FAFSA, right, there is no limit of 20 at a time. On the CSS profile, you can add as many as you want, right? But the reason why is because for families that are making over a certain income, you have to pay to turn in your CSS profile, right? The first one is $25, and then each one after that is $16. So realistically, if you're applying to, I don't know, 20 schools or 21 schools, just make it easy math for me, right? It's $25 for the first one, and then $16 times 20 for the other one. So that's $320. So it's $345 to turn in the CSS profile at 40 or at 21 schools. Okay. So again, it is not a small amount of money. Okay. Now here, right, in the second after you kind of choose which colleges you want, they also ask what your kind of living arrangements are going to be and how you applied. The how you applied, not so important, but again, make sure you click the right one. The more important one is your housing plans, right? Now, I get it. Some students are thinking about living at home, living in an apartment, so on and so forth. But whenever you go to a college's website and look at their kind of like cost of attendance per year, you'll see that living on campus always has the highest cost profile, right? You have to live there at the dorms, you have to eat in the cafeteria. So those things are more expensive, right? Now, why will we want to choose the one that's the most expensive? Because we want to show them that the cost of going to that college versus our income, there's a larger gap. Okay, that's why we want to choose the highest priced option. Okay. Now, here, right, one of the things I always talk about is the value of your home. Okay, value of your home is such a tricky question because realistically, the value of the home of my home is the value that I pay property tax on. Don't trust Zillow, don't trust Redfin. The only real way to know the market value of your home is to actually try to sell it, right? But how many people are actually trying to sell their home as their student is applying to college and in their last year of high school? I don't know that many. Okay, so again, use what's on an official government form, which is your county's tax assessor form, right? That number is probably going to be lower than the actual market value, right? Now, the biggest pro tip that I'm going to give to families during this kind of training today is this. In the parent financial section, there's only about 5 questions, right, that are required. The rest of them, you do not need to answer. So my kind of key point here is do not volunteer information. That is not your job to do, right? You don't need to fill out every single box for them and make it easier for them to take away your financial aid. Make them do the work to do that, okay? And finally, we kind of have these different pieces, right? About like what the student is going to earn. Across the board, you should put 0, right? Again, that puts your need at the highest because again, there's no additional income coming in from the student, from other sources, right? Now we get to this section where it's student resources. How much are the parents going to contribute, or family, or scholarships, or this or that, so on and so forth, right? I want you guys to be the meanest parents out there. I don't want you to contribute anything. I don't want grandma and grandpa to contribute anything. I don't want Auntie Bill and Aunt Jill to kind of contribute anything. Everything is going to be 0. It's poor orphan Annie. That's what I want to see in this section. Okay. Now the takeaways here, right? Whether it's the FAFSA or the CSS form, right? They are just trying to get you to give information to them so that they can beep you, right? You can fill in the beep with whatever you want, right? But at the end of the day, answer the basic questions, find ways around questions, and then if they ask later, then you can basically do that, right? But before you turn anything in, right? Now, I actually had 4 consultations with seniors this year, so I'm gonna put this out there. If you're a senior, don't turn anything in, don't sign anything until you talk to me, right? If you're a 2027, don't even touch these things right now. You don't need to do it. The proper year is not even open for you yet, right? So please wait and make sure to have that consultation with me, okay? Again, our consultations are free. What does it hurt? 15 minutes of your time, okay? Now, there is more after this, right? There's IDOC, there's verification forms, there's income verification, dependent verification, termination verification, there's additional portals per college, there's additional forms, right? So there's more out there, and eventually I will get to it as our trainings progress, right? But for today, I want to make sure that our 2027, 2028, 2029 families know that they can ask for help, right? So whether it is in Facebook, right? And for our families, we're actually moving away from Discord, right? We have our website kind of up and running, right? That's where we want to talk to you kind of soon, right? But I don't want you to go into this blind. Ask your questions, come to our trainings, right? Reach out in the chat feature on the website, right? So that you can talk to us before you fill anything out, before you do anything. Okay. Now, as far as our results, we've been showing these all year. I'm trying to get some students that got in early and that got their financial aid awards to send me some screenshots. So I'll be updating these very soon. Okay. But again, we've been able to get great results for families. Okay. Now, if you guys do have questions, please feel free to ask them in the Q&A or in the chat, right? Or if you want to kind of talk to us sooner, go ahead and text 650-860-5201, and my team will make sure to set up an appointment with you so that we can discuss your family's financial situation and kind of see what we can do for your family. Okay, so we'll kind of do question time now. If you do have questions, you can put them in the Q&A or in the chat. Okay, I'm not seeing anything now. Okay. One thing I did want to remind families of is that we do have some specials when you call in, right? So, we have early enrollment discounts. We have kind of one pay discounts, right? So again, I'm sure we can find the right plan for you, right? Make sure to kind of reach out to us, and then we will make sure to kind of discuss kind of the situation, okay? All right, I don't see any questions, so we'll kind of end it off for today. Again, Happy New Year. If you guys do have any other questions, please let us know. And, again, I'll leave this up just real quickly so that you guys can, take a screenshot if you guys need it or need the QR code, and then we should be good to go, okay? All right, well, everyone have a great start to your new year, and we'll talk to you guys again soon. Bye-bye.